Hello everyone, this is Patty from PentaQ. I'm here with 100 C's General Manager PapaSmithy. I'm very lucky to have him on this interview with us. And so we're gonna go right in. Is that okay with you?
Sounds good to me.
Okay. So first off, congratulations on 100 Thieves making Worlds. So what is your opinion on the teams, how they're doing right now, and what is your aspiration with the team?
Sure. I mean, it was a really big day for us just a few days ago on Saturday. If you were able to catch the series, it was a five-game banger. It shouldn't have been. In game four, we were 9K gold up. As a coaching staff, we were getting ready to go celebrate with the players, and then the rookie hope, Danny, kind of like dashed our hopes and it pushed it to a game five. So it was for what it, I guess I'm a bit of a like esports old man at this point. I've been around a while. Definitely, it was hard on my heart. I definitely felt it. It was a bit of a struggle, but we got over the line. And a year ago Saturday, actually, I think it was exactly a year to the day, we were eliminated in the lower bracket by EG, and we started our work on kind of what the 2021 season would look like with Worlds as the goal. So it felt really good 1 year later to lock it in, and it made the fans happy. It made, the leadership happy. It's a very proud moment for me. Now I've qualified for Worlds as a GM after being so many times as a caster. So it was definitely a super big day, a day I won't forget.
You guys went out to celebrate after the game.
We actually sort of. So it's Saturday night. We didn't have a reservation, so obviously not that easy to go to a really nice restaurant in LA. So we kind of banked the like swanky, expensive steak meal for another day. And instead, Nate Shot and the other leadership were waiting at the compound after watching the game, and Nate Shot invited everyone around for drinks and dinner and things like that. So we went in, instead of going out, we came over to his house, and it was still everyone was a bit tired, but it was still a really big celebration because, a year ago we were planning what 2021 could look like, and making Worlds is that goal. It's that goal for every team, and it's obviously one we're very excited to have achieved.
So let's go into some of your players and your opinion on it.
Sure.
So as a general manager, you have a say in who's to recruit, right? I guess.
Yeah, if there's, I
So,
mean, GM can mean many
yeah.
different things, but if there was one job for a general manager, like one thing you're like, okay, that's the GM's job, it's roster and stuff, hiring and letting go.
So I guess we're very curious with your mid laner Abadag. Is that right?
Hmm.
Abadag.
It's
So
hard to pronounce, right?
Abadag. Is that
I
right?
think so. I think if you ask him, he'd say Abadaga, which is
Abadag.
like it's a very specific pronunciation. But you hear Abadage, you hear like even the EU casters say
Uh,
Abadage. Like
uh,
honestly, his real name is Felix, so that's a
uh,
lot easier for most people. But yes, if the Chinese fans are wanting, technically it's Abadaga, but just do your best, right? Just like we try and do with some
yeah.
of the Chinese players'
Yeah.
names as well.
No problem. So I guess people are saying that he's the second Faker because of his like big champion pool and how he's like really good with every champion. So what is your opinion on him and his specialties on it? What does he bring to the team? Because you've seen Faker play so many years, I guess.
Hmm.
So what is your opinion on him compared to Faker, or what is he different from Faker, I guess?
Yeah, it's the Faker comparison is funny. I think the EU casters and EU community dubbed him Faker Dage, and that's where the connection came. It's one thing to say Faker Dage because it sounds fun, it's a cool name,
Yeah,
it's catchy. I
yeah,
think on the one hand, Faker Dage is one thing, but second coming of Faker, I think, is always that like risky title to put on someone, right? Like how many mid laners would there have been? You and I have both been around a long time. Like how many mid laners have been called the second coming of Faker? We're talking like
everyone.
30, 40, like any mid laner who hit a great skill shot or won a team fight
Yeah,
in a best of five is like
yeah,
this guy could be Faker. So I think that part I like leave to one
yeah.
side. But
Okay,
what I
okay.
can say about Felix or Abadage, as most people know him, is that I think he even surprised me with kind of how well-rounded he is. When we brought him on, we were researching for what mids we could attract for the summer season when, as many people know, Sumday's green card came in so we could bring in a mid laner from anywhere in the world. And the simple fact about Abadaga is he's a fantastic control mage player. And if you look at North America compared to other regions, having control mages in your back pocket means you're always relevant. Even when the world meta is assassins, it can sometimes just be a control mage meta in North America. So on the one hand, it was like, okay, he's got that down. And obviously we watched him closely and his individual skill was undeniable. But in getting to work with him and meet him, he's very much like I don't know if the Chinese fans will know this analogy, but he's like a Swiss Army knife. You know, those knives where you open it up and there's like a knife, there's a bottle opener, like
Uh,
it can like
anything.
serve you in any situation.
Uh-huh.
And I think that's the surprising thing about Abadage is that, you know, if we need to pick Karma to make closer a bigger carry on Xinjiao or Olaf, he's happy to do it. If the team's struggling a bit and they need like a push or someone to have a positive vibe, he'll do it. If he needs to play a control mage, he'll do it. And he does it all with a smile. And I think a lot of players, especially mid laners, have been known for their egos or being selfish or things like that. And on the other hand, Abba is kind of like a breath of fresh air. So we came in being like, oh, we've got a really good mid laner who we know will fit North America. And we just got someone who's really good, you know, at all parts of the game and experienced enough to be ready to take on a challenge because it's not easy halfway through the year to come in and be expected to make worlds, like be expected to be an instant value add. And if it took him a long time to settle in, we wouldn't have been able to finish top two in the regular season and only have a single best of five for worlds. So it was not an easy situation for him to come into, but he killed it. He's a real credit to himself and to the team.
To you to bring him on. Anyway, let's move on to your bot liner, Huhi and FBI, because everyone have good opinion of those two. But I guess like people are saying that your team's current style is more aggressive and early game. So how do you think the bot lane duel like helps with that kind of stuff? Because like what we know from like bot lane, probably late game is more important for them. So how do you think they contribute to your own like current style, I guess?
So I think the thing about FBI and Huhi is when it comes to at least major regions, you know, they came up together when they were on a Golden Guardians Academy 2 years ago, and then obviously made a big splash in the LCS last year. Um, I think the thing about them is they have a real aggressive streak. I think Huhi came in and kind of learned how he wanted to play lane from FBI, because obviously Huhi is a role swap from mid lane. People would remember him making the finals of MSI, you know, 5 years ago in Shanghai, actually, right, in 2016. So given that, FBI is innately a super aggressive player. You know, he really wants to pound it into you that he's better than you know, like and play super aggressive. He wants to contest every CS. You know, when I came up as a caster, I remembered Uzi in 2013, 2014 as a really young, aggressive flair player. And you know, FBI is always looking for the big outplay. So I think they're naturally super aggressive and even out of game. FBI, despite being like a smaller guy, you know, he's definitely not someone who would intimidate you on the street, but he walks and talks like he's a big man, you know, and I think that shows in his play. So right now the meta is kind of, at least in North America, play very top side, and then bot lane is like an isolated 2v2 or sometimes just a 1v1. And if you leave FBI and Huhi just to play a 2v2 and the jungler doesn't come, they're going to be under your turret, taking turret plates and diving you. So I think it's a real credit. I'm personally super biased to aggressive players. I think taking an aggressive player and teaching them to be smart about their aggression is much easier than taking a passive player and teaching them to be aggressive, because you either see it or you don't. And FBI always sees the outplay, and look, sometimes he runs it down, especially in scrim games, but a lot of our team's color and a lot of our roster was possible from having FBI on the roster. So
Right.
definitely he's a player who in the off season, the moment we signed him, um, every free agent messaged us and wanted to play for us because they had dealt with their bot lane in scrims being like, can someone help us? We can't handle this guy. So he's definitely a huge asset.
Great. I guess we want to ask you because a lot of people are actually talking about in the past few weeks about how you guys changed your academy roster out for your game with Evil Genius about like two games ago. So
Hmm.
why does that? Why did you guys try that? Because we know that you probably want to give them a chance to play with
Hmm.
LCS. But like maybe what is your opinion on why you guys put them on for that game?
Sure, I know it was a talking point. You know, for us, with one game left in the season, we played against Golden Guardians our second last game. We won that, and then we're all on the couch watching, I want to say it was TL versus EG. Um, and if TL was to win that game, we're locked top two, which obviously is huge for us, you know. The ability to only play one best of five to qualify for Worlds, upper bracket of the postseason.
Mhm.
And that result came in. So we can't move, you know, we can't fall to third, we can't move to first. There's no chance for us to change our position. So instantly when that happens and we're facing EG, we have a lot of respect for Evil Geniuses. They're a very, very strong team. We think we'll play them in a best of five at some point, and our goal is to put a banner on the wall. It's to win. Well, it's not to win Worlds. It's the further dream, but it's to win the LCS obviously more immediately. So given that, and our team also being before that not in the best form, you know, we had a lot to work on, and we knew that. The idea of playing our team the next day, showing another set of strategies and giving more information to a team to use in a VOD review or something when preparing for us, that wasn't our kind of like first concern. Like we didn't really want to show off anymore, and we knew we needed time to practice. And at the same time, we're blessed to have a really, really talented academy team. You know, I watched our academy team, especially at the start of summer. They were winning scrims against LCS teams. They were doing really, really well on stage. And I watched these guys, you know, some guys that I recruited when they were 16, 17, you know, lighting up games. And when you have a great academy team and a great LCS team, you kind of look at your academy team and you're like, man, I wish I could give these guys more. Like, I wish there was a chance for them to show themselves to the world rather than just academy that gets a lot lower viewership. So it honestly was just a perfect scenario where competitively we're able to get an advantage from not showing any more strategies. And also as a GM, you kind of want to know, okay, if these guys win the LCS, what would it look like? And what would we take away from that? So it just ended up being a perfect storm of something that everyone was for. And, you know, when I went to the coaches and the players, they all agreed. So there was no kind of like animosity there. So it just felt like a feel good situation for everyone.
Are you happy with the results they give you?
I'm really happy. You know, I think there was some individual things to take away. Luger and Puma in the bot lane had a really big lead over Danny, who's obviously a big star now. So that was good to see there. It was good for their confidence. I think everybody took away a couple of learnings and things that they need to improve before they can be a full-time LCS player. And it's one of those things where your results in academy don't really always give you the best things to work on to be an LCS level player. The jump up is really big. So I think it's kind of it's like throwing a bucket of water in the face of somebody and waking them up. You know, they understand that, okay, I've come a long way and I'm doing well in academy, but these are the things I really need to be better about. Otherwise, I'm never going to make it. So I think without trying some of that, without dropping them in the LCS to some degree, I think it would have taken a lot longer for them to have learned that. So I'm happy to give them kind of like an apprenticeship, you know, a 1 day apprenticeship in the LCS and then a lot of time to think about it.
Great. So since we're on like the rookie or like how you like pick up like new players, can we talk about start talking about NA as a region?
Mm-hmm.
So where do you look for these new talents? Because we know like in LCK or like in Korea, you have all these young people playing, and in LPL you have like the whole the lower league. And in LCS, where do you find these talents in solo queue, or how would you judge an NA solo? Because there's been like people saying how it's hard to find talents in NA, right?
I think it is, it's harder. I mean, I remember hearing about the LPL and EDG having like 5 or 6 teams, like even 5 years ago, you know, of having like these big talent farms, and eventually they could work their way up to the LSPL and to the, I guess, LDL now, you know, and then eventually into the LPL. And there wasn't really that same third team mentality in North America. You know, teams had an academy team because you were forced to, didn't always put their full heart into the academy team. And then the interesting part was, and this is where, especially like education system is different in North America to say China or Korea, is that, you know, it wasn't rare to hear stories of like 15, 14, 13-year-old players, you know, in an org in China, kind of like developing themselves in a lower level team. Whereas in North America, if you weren't 17, then basically you were focused on school. You couldn't join an academy team because it's full time. You couldn't join an LCS team because it's full time. And in America, if you don't finish your high school diploma you're kind of heavily judged for that. Like you can't leave early. You have to finish your high school diploma, which usually are around 18 years of age. And so coming in and understanding that, I saw that there was a lot of talented 15, 16-year-old players when we looked through the solo queue ladder to answer your question. And if you wonder how, you literally watch their games, you add them, and it's like, hey, who are you? And like, they're sometimes like, oh, I'm Hooney on a Smurf. And you're like, okay, well, that's not very useful. And then you eventually find some that are like, 15, 16, 17-year-old talented players. And the problem for them is they're good at League of Legends, but they don't really have any way to take the next step.
Mm,
They're in year 11 or year 10, they're still in high school, they
mm,
can't go full time with academy or anything like that. And it didn't sit well with me that they just kind of had to like sit out and just play solo queue and study, because if you allow them to do that with no reward, with no incentive, with no financial side, maybe they'll just one day decide to play a different game. They might jump to Fortnite. We might miss our opportunity to bring in and really embrace the talent that we do have in North America, because the server size obviously is a lot smaller than China and Korea. So for
mm,
100 Thieves Next, which is the name of our third team or our amateur team, the goal was, let's give coaching and structure and financial payment to players who otherwise wouldn't really be able to fit into the current system in North America. And the first thing I did was I put together for the underage player kind of like a letter to their parents explaining like what we were doing and making it clear that we want to give your child the opportunity to play professionally, but our first priority is they're able to full-time complete their studies. So we will limit the amount of practice and the timings around their needs for school. We'll never allow it to interrupt their schooling or anything like that. And it would just be a chance for them to get a taste of what it's like to move into the system, to see if they enjoy it. And in the future, if both you and we want to move forward, moving them up to Academy or LCS, then obviously we'll go that route. So it's very much about looking at a unique situation and problem and trying to find a way to bring in some really talented players. So yeah, straight to the solo queue ladder, straight to emailing and talking to parents and talking to them about esports, and 100 Thieves was the start of it all.
So I guess, and then there you're looking at the age perspective of esports in a different way than in Asia, right? Because like in Asia, when you reach like 20, 21, you're kind of old for esports. But in
hmm
India, it's different. You can only start when you're 18, right? Is that what you think it is? Do
I
you think
think to
age
some,
really matters?
I think so. To me, 18-year-old players could always get into Academy and LCS, but 16-year-old players had nowhere to go. And
Uh,
so I wanted to look at those younger players, because obviously, even just as a GM, right? If you have
uh,
a talented young player, you can theoretically have them for longer. They'll have a longer career,
right.
right?
Yeah.
So I think that was kind of our unique side is, okay, LCS is there for the established players, Academy is there for the
Uh,
players who come through the scene. If there's nothing there for the Zoomers, the really young players, let's open up something for them, because if we can be the team that's on top of the young players, then that's just going to mean we're going to have talent going from our
uh,
third team to our second team to our first team. And that's kind of the competitive advantage we had, is we were the only people looking at the players who were a bit younger.
so you're kind of bringing the Asian style into
Yeah, I mean,
entertainment.
look, I learned the Asian style
Yeah.
firsthand from
Yeah.
people like you and
Yeah.
from spending time in Korea and China. So why not use an inspiration if you can find one?
Great. So that's, I guess, as we're talking about LPL and LCK and your experience in different regions, let's go to that comparison between
Sure.
different regions. So as we said that 100 Thieves seems to be going for the early game and aggressive style. Do you think that will help them when they come to China for Worlds? Because we know that LPL has this kind of style. Is that what you're trying to get them to, or is it just you like that style?
So, I mean, I'm not the coach, right? But I can say that when I'm scouting players, I always like the aggressive style. And I
Uh-huh.
think the meta right now,
Mm.
you have to fight first and ask questions later. So I think coming in with a full scaling mentality will
Mm.
definitely hold you back when you
Uh-huh.
come in and fight against LPL teams,
Uh-huh.
even to some degree LCK teams who seem to have taken a lot of inspiration from the LPL
Yeah.
in the last couple of years. So for sure, I'm happy that we have an aggressive style and we have players whose natural speed is to play aggressive.
Do you think, how would you suggest other teams in NA to like, when they come to China to fight, how would you give them suggestions as to their style change? Do you think they need to change their style? I
I
guess.
think it's hard to say. I think that we don't really have, like 2 years ago, it was like pretty clear, like Team Liquid was the scaling team, Cloud9 was the more early game focused team. I don't think we have quite those linear things now. Like for example, maybe Team Solar Mid might be the TSM might be the scaling team, but you can see they're trying to shift that. Team Liquid is more of a chameleon. They can download the enemy and try to play a style that's appropriate to them. I guess EG and 100 Thieves are on the more aggressive style. I think as long as you're self-critical and you try to reinvent yourself and you approach League of Legends from a global context rather than just how do we win North America, I think you're already setting yourself up to be competitive. I still think North America has a long way to go. I think compared to 4 years ago when I was last in China, when it was watch the LCK and copy them, that's the only way to win. We're much closer now, 4 years later, to watch the LPL and try to copy them. That's the only way to win. So, with LPL being such overwhelming favorites for
Yeah,
Worlds this year,
yeah.
I think I can tell you that when I walk into the room and see players looking at highlights, 2 years ago even, but definitely 3, 4 years ago, they were only LCK highlights. Now it's LPL highlights almost everywhere. So definitely we know where to take the right inspiration from.
So which teams do you think in LPL, in your opinion, is better, and which team do you think 100 Thieves should look on, like look up on, or just to defeat, I guess, rivals?
I can't pick one, but
Uh,
EDG, RNG, both these teams are really, really powerful. Last year everyone was watching top esports and
uh,
trying to take their inspiration there. I think the top group of teams in China are so powerful. Like when you refresh Reddit in the morning and see that a team like TES and a team like Suning are being eliminated, you're just like, man, like these teams would crush in our region and they can't even, reach Worlds qualifications. So I'm scared. I think we're all scared of what the LPL is able to put together.
I guess this next question is kind of a funny one. So we've seen that your team recruit players from different regions, from
Mm-hmm.
everywhere around the world, but like not necessarily in NA, like local
Mm-hmm.
players. So what is your like why did you guys decide to do that, or did you do that on purpose, or why did that happen that way? I guess.
Sure. I mean, technically, if you want to look at North American born players, we have none of those on our starting roster. We have none of those in terms of coaching. Even as a general manager, I'm not North American. You actually have to go all the way to the head analyst to find a North American born person.
Mm.
And people look at that as some sort of indictment or something to use against us. But I guess I don't quite see it that way. On the one hand, we've talked about how we've got a lot of North American young players in our third and second teams. And I think the future of our org and the league is going to be the sort of players who we're getting at 16, 17 and pushing towards in the future. But you don't just start and then you're ready to go in the LCS. You don't, in my opinion, you don't drop fresh rookies in the LCS unless you've done something wrong. You build them up to be in a position to be ready there. So
Mm.
when it comes to our starting roster, we have for our North American residents, we have FBI, who's obviously Australian after the rule changed last year. And then we have Hui and Someday. And I think for someone like you who's been around the LCK a long time, you probably still associate Someday with Korea. And obviously, he was one of the best top players in the world when he was in Korea. But he's also the only player who's still on the same team from when franchising started in 2018 spring. Like he's been 100 Thieves player since the start of 2018, and every single other player who started in 2018 is not on the same team. So like he's been around and in North America for a year longer than that. So he's not a North American born player, but if you
He's,
can't embrace someone who's been around NA and committed to NA for as long as he has, then that's the part where I kind of lose you. And I feel the same way about Huhi because he was kind of an afterthought in Korea for like half a second, right? It was a very short tenure in Korea and basically made his name as a mid laner on CLG, and then role swapped from there, all of which being committed to North America. So I think it's cool. Like while people can come in and say there's no NA players there, that's why I judge you. I look at my team as this group of people from all over the world who have all come together and said, this is where I want to play. I want to play in North America. This is the server that I want to be in. I'll try and make the solo queue better. I'll grind and have a positive attitude and really commit to it. So I feel like the melting pot,
Yeah.
side of things is how I feel about us. So to me, it's a proud thing, not something I'm ashamed of.
You guys are the true American team.
People say that, and I can smile because what do I know about true Americans? I'm Australian, so I don't want to say anything about true Americans. That's for someone else to judge.
Cool. Okay, so now we're gonna go into some personal goals.
Sure.
So I guess you have a lot of experience and you're very professional in the field. So what is your personal goal with 100 Thieves as a team, or your personal goal? Like, what do you see yourself in 10 years, I guess?
Man, 10 years. 10 years is a hard one. 10
Oh,
years
5 years.
ago,
5 years.
yeah, 5 years is a bit more realistic. I think when I made the transition away from casting, it was for a new challenge and to see League from a different angle. Being a broadcaster for as long as I was, you learn to narrate League of Legends. You learn to find a storyline with any two teams and tell a story, but you don't write your own story. You're telling other people's stories and coming on the team side with one team and getting to understand what a scrim's like, why a scrim's sometimes very useful and very useless. Like, how do you build a roster and how do you move forward, especially in a new environment that I didn't know very well, like North America, was just a very welcome change of pace. After you cast the World Final 2 years in a row, on the World Finals broadcast 3 years in a row, there's not really much room to grow in casting. But on the team side, obviously, you can always do better. And if you win, you want to win a second time. And so my first goal joining 100 Thieves was to qualify for Worlds. So I guess you're catching me in an interview right after, a few days after I'd reached my first goal. So that part obviously is, thumbs up on that. I think for me, the second part is the first chapter I wrote with 100 Thieves was messaging all these 16, 17-year-olds and bringing them onto our amateur team. And now a lot of those players are on academy team. And so I actually really enjoy every few months working with the younger players and kind of helping them find their voice and helping them find teams, whether it's our team or get onto other teams. Like the fact that our first amateur roster, every single player made to academy, and some of those players played in LCS this year is obviously super exciting. And because I come from a background of school counselor, school psychology, working with young people, I must admit I always enjoy giving people their first opportunity in esports. And I think some of those players we gave an opportunity to are smashing down the doors, ready to take the next level. So whether that's with us or other teams, I love just starting chapters for young players, but also competing. Like we're still in the LCS finals, we're in the winners bracket final. There's a chance we can put a banner on the wall. And so I want to push as far as we can. And if we win this split, let's win again next year. If we don't win this split, let's win next time, So it's very much about putting up the victories on the LCS side, but also continuing to have this like youth pipeline from solo queue to amateur to academy within our org, and then maybe one day from solo queue to amateur to academy to maybe even LCS.
That's great. Great story. So looking back at esports, if you are yourself 10 years ago, would you expect esports to grow this big today?
No, definitely not. I mean, I didn't really know esports before League of Legends. So my first experience with esports was about just over 10 years ago, WCG 2010, the 2011 Open scene and all the tournaments that happened in 2011, 2012 before LCS, LEC, LPL even happened. I still remember the day where I heard a rumor that the LPL was going to happen. Like at the end of 2012, I heard the rumor that China was also going to have their own weekly league. Because at that time, I was casting like IEM qualifiers for Korea, IEM qualifiers for China, and this idea that there would be a full-time Chinese league was a dream. I wanted to cast the LPL and only had the opportunity to do that full-time a few years later. So definitely we were all understanding what this could be 10 years ago. And now fast forward into the LPL, the LEC, the LCS, the LCK being such household names, have been around a long time and inspired other esports to grow. It's surreal, to be honest. I pinch myself because I just decided to play a MOBA game after playing original Dota in college, and I didn't think I would play League of Legends for more than a couple of days, a couple of hours, and here I am, general manager of a franchise esports team. So yeah, if you ask me what it looks like in 10 years, who the hell knows, man? It's so hard to work these things out.
Like a fantasy come
I
true.
like a fantasy, exactly.
So for the future, I guess, where do you think esports gonna go in your opinion, or in your fantasy? Not yet happening.
I think we have a lot of work to do on the monetization side in terms of revenue. I think that because we don't have the ticket sales of traditional sports, the
Mm-hmm.
monetization side, you hear a lot about how basically everyone is speculating, about what will come in the future. And I think getting closer to kind of like actually making what that speculation is tangible and coming up with new ways and new spins to monetize esports, I think is one of the big things. And it might not be at my level, it might be a bit above my head, but finding intelligent ways to provide compelling content that fans are willing to pay for, I think is pretty important because if we're going to be here in another 10 years and still be powerful, I think we're going to have to get on top of things like that. Otherwise, yeah, there's no guarantee that we'll still be having a conversation like this in 10 years.
Awesome. Okay, so last question. I guess
Sure.
we're kind of curious with the whole Gucci and 100 Thieves collaboration.
Luxury brands.
So, what is your opinion on how like esports is trying to like connect with the high fashion brand? Because we have a lot of that in LPL. And what is your personal? Do you like Gucci yourself?
As a 100 Thieves member, I love Gucci. Actually, funnily enough, I was brought up on luxury brands because my
Um,
mom is very much into fashion. So compared to my players who didn't really understand it, and definitely
uh,
some of our fans who are surprised by the prices. I know how much a handbag costs from Dior or Gucci or one of these big brands, right?
yeah,
And we ourselves at 100 Thieves consider ourselves a premium brand, and we're trying to
yeah.
exist in the same space as a Gucci. So to
Uh,
collaborate with such an international name was honestly humbling. And it was a practice day for the players while I was around for the Gucci shoot. So I got to see, all the people coming over from Milan to film and stuff like that. Someday dressing up, as you would have seen in the advert, as part of the talent. So it was very much old media and new media coming together to build something beautiful experience. So I think that luxury brands getting into esports makes perfect sense. Like Gucci looks at the sort of demographic that's watching Twitch, that's playing League of Legends, that's watching League of Legends, and they're people who aren't watching TV or getting access to the same sort of cues that the people did 30 years ago. So they're trying to find other ways to be old school cool. Like Gucci is old school cool. And I think it's cool to see esports and luxury brands come together because esports is a very niche product that the people who are into it are really, really into it. And the funny thing is that high fashion is
same.
pretty similar. It's a different demographic, but in both of them, they're very specific. You can put your whole life into it and appreciate it on a really specific level and become a huge fan of it. And it's fun that those two things can both exist and then once in a while come together and build something beautiful like we were able to with Gucci. So it was really cool, and I hope we have many more opportunities to collaborate in similar ways.
Does your mom know about this?
Yeah, she knew about it for sure. I mean, the moment I hear we're doing a Gucci collaboration, is there anyone better to tell than my mom, right? Like she's the perfect
Exactly.
person to tell about it. So she was very impressed.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time today, and we
Pleasure.
really appreciate you joining us with this interview. And good luck on your future. Else, hopefully, you guys can win the championship.
We're gonna shoot for the championship, but thank you very much for inviting us to this PentaQ interview. I've heard about them for the longest time. My first chance to actually work with them. So yeah, tell our story. Hopefully a lot of Chinese fans appreciate it. And I'm super excited to make my way over there and hopefully show you guys some good games in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Bye.
much. Bye.